All right, squad, I just wanted to do a follow-up video to the one debacle of the old Fly.io AWS cost blowout with the data transfer. So I wanted to show you what we've done now. So we've got the AWS billing, looks like it's sorted. We're now deployed to Flightcontrol, which looks awesome. So let's jump in and have a look how it all's done. Okay, so last time I showed you what was going on here. I just want to give you a quick recap in case you didn't see that video. So we got an alert one day from AWS saying, hey, S3 bill, there's an anomaly. You can see it over here. It's a bit of a, let me just bump the screen up so we can all see. So we can see here, there's an anomalies detected, which is usually not good when you're getting bills like this. You can watch our S3 bill here, just kind of slowly climbing, right? So we started off here at like 14 bucks, 10, 25, 51, 108. Now keep in mind, we don't have that many users. We have under 200 users here. So you wouldn't expect kind of exponential growth. But what is happening is the users are doing more and more video files and they're quite big. And I explained in the last video how we are taking, when a user uploads a video, so it goes from client into S3, we then take that file from S3 back into Fly.io to process it. So that's to extract the metadata. And I actually found that we were also sending it again in a different time. And if it may have hit a different instance, but to extract the thumbnails, so the two separate processes in active storage. Now, that gets expensive really fast, as you can tell, because we're sending some of these files at 20 gigabytes, could be bigger, they're 4K massive video files, and we're sending them across the wire. We're also having problems with timeouts and also storage space on the fly instances. So you can see here the anomalies jumping out through here. And you can see saying, hey boys, let's watch out. Look at this 2,200% increase. And then a good way to check this out, this is also what I found out how to do later on. But if you go into the Cost Explorer, and now we can see monthly, but we want to just say, let's go in the last 7 days, apply that. Now what we can do is we can go granularity daily, which is very useful. And now you can see, so here's S3, well, on that day in particular was high. And this is obviously a day when someone's come and done some work. But what we want to see here is the usage type. This is key here. And now you can actually break it down into what is the usage. So it's got the service of S3, that's fine. But what exactly are we spending the money on? And you can look here, you can see APS2 data transfer out bytes cost us 40 bucks. So we spent $40 just sending data out of S3. And that was sending S3 to Fly.io, right? Now, obviously this isn't scalable. This would have sunk us very fast. So to solve that, we ended up moving and transitioning to a service called Flightcontrol. So if you have a look here, I showed this in the last video of how I was kind of setting it up and I was working through it and didn't get to finish it, but in the last week or so, we've done that. But basically what it is they build the infrastructure on top of AWS. So they set up all the services you need, and it's all super secure and it's enterprise ready. And I can tell that it is because we've done this before in the past, and you can see how they set things up. But it's all done, and you just pay a single fee on top, and then you pay for your AWS resources. And this doesn't scale, so they're not charging a percentage of your resources, which is really cool. And then you end up at the end of the day with something like this, right? So if we jump in, you can see here, we've got our production environment now, estimated price here, that's all the AWS resources. You can see the deployments come through here and they run, and every time you deploy, you get this little thing and it goes for the server and the worker, and it works through here, and you can see all the different things that are happening, right? So you got your pre-deploys, your build steps, you can watch everything happening. So it's very much like a Fly or a Roku or any of those things you've used to using, but you get to control the services on the other side, which makes it way more cost effective and also just gives you way more visibility. So if you ever didn't want to use the service anymore, you'd still keep all your resources. One of the cool things here is we are now deploying to Fargate. So let me just bump that up a bit more. So to AWS Fargate, which is basically a managed service that looks after the CPUs and scales instances up and down for us. We can define what size CPUs and then our domain name, and then we get all our logs coming through. So we're getting this, we're getting our runtime logs. They all just flow straight into here and we can see what's going on. You can see the AWS resources that were created. This is really cool. So you can just click on this, actually go straight to AWS, and you can learn how it's all set up just through this system, which is, I find super useful, and it's a real great refresher for me, but you can see everything that's being created. It's all done using CloudFormation, so you can actually watch it go through and build. So very powerful. And what that's done, if we go have a look, so we've gone from $39 to now our S3 bill, data out is 23 cents here. And what's data out here? It's almost becoming like a nothing, 19 cents. And that's going to be when people actually fetch the file to download, right? So that's unavoidable. We can't, when someone wants to grab their file from S3 onto their computer, we do pay for that, and that's fine. But it's 19 cents, not $60. And our S3 bill's basically gone. So now if we change it back to service grouping, you can see now we're paying for S3 46 cents, 53 cents. And obviously this will kind of stay relatively flat because as you add data to S3, it just kind of slowly goes up as you add. And it should really go with how many projects or files we're getting. We shouldn't see this. So hopefully we've fixed it. Like it's been a short period of time. We've only had a few days here, but I do know that these customers are still working. But we can see we've avoided a massive thing. So we should see a massive price reduction, and now it should be way more sustainable, because the key thing with AWS is they charge you for transfer out, but they don't charge you for transfer in, which is sneaky, right? So obviously it's free to come in, but it costs you to leave. So what that does is it encourages you to put resources inside of AWS. So now that we have our EC2 instances inside of AWS, there is no charge between S3 and EC2. So that is it's a way to tie you in and lock you in. But for us, it's kind of like we have no other option. So we had to go this because we find S3 is one of the best storage systems there is. And because we're dealing with video, we're doing so much volume. So this kind of solution was really cool. And then what I'll show you is what it looks like inside of our app and basically the configuration. So inside of our app now, we get this flightcontrol.json file. That's pretty much all that there is. And this is your infrastructure as code. So it's very cool. So you can define all your environments here. So we just have one at the moment, which is the production environment. You then define all your services. So we have our web server, which is doing the actual app. It's a type Fargate. You can be Fargate, or you can be a custom one, which is escaping my memory right now. We're using Docker to build, and then you can define what kind of CI resources you use. So we're using very fast services for CI because you only run them for a short period of time. So you throw the biggest amount of hardware you can at it to make sure that the job runs as fast as possible because you want to get the deploy out, and then it shuts it down, right? Then you can define all your storage. This is what we have at decrease, your min, your max, so all the stuff you would have seen in Fly.io or any other service like that. Our pre-deploy, so we're running bundle exec Rails, DB prepare, what ports we're checking up, our health status, so all the things, it's all configured. And then we've got our worker services here as well. And then we've got our Redis server here, which we use for small things. And it's a tiny microservice, right? So you define it all within there. Then all you do is you do a git push and you push it to the branch, or whatever your branch is. So we're using main at the moment to deploy to production because there's only one dev. But realistically in the future, you'd have main as staging or something, and you would have production. And when you do a merge to production, it automatically triggers a new deployment inside of Fly, which is one of these, you can see here, and then that runs, and that just automatically runs. So it's kind of a little bit of improvement of what we had in Fly. I hadn't set up CI/CD for Fly yet. I was just doing manual pushes, but now it kind of forced us to do it this way, which is actually better, and it just feels way more robust, right? So we've now got everything there. Everything's sitting inside of a production AWS account, so all locked down, and it's all just living there nicely. And there's something about knowing and seeing your own resources and just having control over that. That's really nice. And it just makes it easier to use other AWS resources. So there are certain things like Media Encoder or Media Convert, the APIs that you want to use. It's easier to do. If you want to use a Lambda, you can. Sometimes it's a bit harder with the other services because you're going to have to talk cross providers. If they don't offer all the services, it makes it a bit difficult. So anyway, that's how we solved the problem, hopefully. We'll leave it for a couple more weeks, but I just wanted to give an update and show you how we went. And this is something that you run into as your app scales. There's usually no point doing this day one because you're going to just waste lots of money if you have an unproven app. But our app is now scaling and it is acquiring more and more users and people depend on this thing. So we did that. Also, one other thing that we did do is we're using Supabase for Postgres. So we have now enabled point-in-time recovery in Supabase. So that pushed our price up a little bit just because during the transition, I wanted to make sure we had data backups 100%. And it's just, for me, it's peace of mind, right? Like when people are relying on your app and they want to make sure that no data is lost. Point in time recovery is really important because Superbase default is 24 hours. So you have to be happy to lose 24 hours of data. Now, if you don't have many users and you do an experiment, that's fine. But as soon as you have users relying on it or paying or something, you need to be able to back up that data. If you know you can back up to the minute, if something goes wrong, like you push something, you delete a table, something, we never know what happens. You can do that. So that's one other thing. So our infra bill's gone up quite substantially from what we used to be, but we are scaling. So it's something that's worth doing. And it kind of should flatline now. It shouldn't really go anymore. So something to consider. All right, guys, catch you guys on the next one.